So I'm gonna do the close-up words for this session. It's gonna be very easy for me because, as you see, we are called the XX Initiative, and Kaisa told us not to do a pink silos. Well, you know, so it's gonna be easy because we're gonna tell you, you are entering the world of our very own petri dish, which is the ICM. And we're gonna tell you actually what are all the actions we took, the one that failed, the one that didn't fail, and the one that seems probably going to fail, unfortunately. But at the same time, that's the interesting part, is that we are scientists. We like to do experiments. And the very exciting part is that we are very own experimental cohort. And we're testing it on us, so we will be able to, to whatever works or whatever doesn't work, to be able to translate it to other people. So the first thing I'm going to start with is this phrase that we had from our scientific advisory board, which was gender imbalance is unacceptable at ICM. So it's something that struck me because I'm at the ICM since 2011. We got that sentence in 2015, and my first reaction was, wow, they're quite harsh. Why do they say that? You know, I'm a postdoc, I'm a researcher, I got a position, and I think I'm okay, you know, living in this world, and everything is fine. So because you are curious and you're a scientist, you want to know, but why do they say that? So the first thing you do, and that's what Albert is telling us, instead of having like these angry biases towards this sentence, is to collect information and to try to understand why do they say that. And then you get the information and you do this initiative. So this initiative, and this is the problem with the pink silos, is that most of the initiatives are made by volunteer people. So of course, the ones that are going to volunteer to our initiative, because we have a problem with female representation in the ICM, are going to be women. And that's the heart of the problem, is like, I cannot force men if they are not interested by that. Maybe now that we heard all of your expertise and all of your speeches, we might rephrase some of our things, but most of the time it's because it's based on volunteering. And volunteering, I cannot reinforce that. So it was very, various people from various backgrounds, and we said the first thing we need to do as scientists is to collect data. Because when you have data, it's easier for you to discuss afterwards. So we collect data, and the first thing we did is a snapshot of what we have, the female-male distribution as scientific career. And as you can see, and nothing new under the sun, is that we have more doc and postdocs as female, as women, and then the more we go into higher hierarchy, the more we lose this task force, because I don't want to talk about leaky pipeline, but more about how we lose this task force that for us was, help us like publish and help us succeed and help us do good science. So that means they were excellent and they were good for us to reach these goals, but then somehow we lose them along the track, right? This is nothing new, because this is what we find worldwide. This is what is described at the CNRS, so we were not like a special example, and we are not the bad guys in the story, but we just did like everybody else is doing. Next, we were looking at the steering committees, because of course, we wanted to know also how we were represented in the committee that made decisions. As you can see, this is where it was most striking, is that we were 63% of women by the time when we did that survey, and we were, as you can see, very poorly represented in all the scientific advisory committee, but administrative committee, and so on. So how can we take actions on that, and what can we do? So the first thing we did, and Chrissy talked about it, is write this paper in Native Human Behavior just to describe what we wanted to do and what we were facing. The first thing we are facing is that everybody else is like, we are losing the task force. We are losing the people we are forming, we are losing the students and the postdoc. The second thing we want to say in that paper is that most of our foreign colleagues coming from Germany, from USA, from England, were telling us, but we don't understand. In France, you have everything. They help you with child support, you have all this law helping you, you have the perfect environment, and you are not still succeeding. And this is where the problem is. It's not a question of that. It's a question of gender bias. It's a question of stereotype. And it's not because you have all these law, helping you raise your child, that actually you can succeed during your career. So that was the first point, and the first thing we said that we were going to do in this paper is to first establish a gender equity committee. Once again, mostly women, one man, so who is also there, because once again it's on the basis of volunteering. So who wants to volunteer? Who wants to put his energy and his time, because extra time from your work, to do these things? So the very important thing for us was, first of all, to connect with the stakeholders of the ICM. So who was the directors, the human resources, the communication department, and the grant office. The first thing, we have to interlink these people, because we know they are going to be the one who are going to help us, and because we are exchanging with them, we have a chance to succeed. Because they are listening to us, we have a chance to succeed. And it was actually very fruitful, and we are very happy because they are as engaged as us. It's not always easy because we all have our, point of view of what is working, what is not working, and all these days about that, right? But at the same time, we all have that same, overarching goal to succeed in that. And plus, because also we say in the paper that we're gonna, do like a little screenshot of what is happening 5 years later and how much did we succeed or not in our action. So the first thing we did also is elaborate a charter, and this is a charter that just came out because it took us quite a while because of the COVID and so on. Like we had quite 2 years that was quite difficult, and it's good because the Paris Brain Institute decided to put this principle forward in his website and in his action, because it was important for us to have this principle. And along this principle, we have objectives. So the principle, of course, is to promote gender equity in all of its operations and activities, to affirm that gender diversity and equity are an enriching factor, and maybe there we could have put inclusion is the important part of any research activity. So the Paris Brain Institute is committed to combat discrimination, bias, and stereotype linked to gender within the institute and within society. That is committed to providing working environment, and this is once again part of the inclusion, because this is something we have to work much more, and this is it was clear from many of the speakers that presented today, to contribute to the well-being and professional fulfillment. How do we feel included? How our work is recognized, and so on. And then guarantee the visibility of women, the fair recognition of their contribution, because this is essential, having role models, having someone who you can look up to tell you that you can do it and you can be in that place, in that hierarchy, right? And then we also encourage research, whether clinical, applied, or fundamental, to better understand gender differences. And this is something that Camille showed us, and that of course we want to explore in what is part of biology, because there is a difference, and that's interesting for us because we are curious about that. And what is different about the gender influence that can be done in our research. So here are the objectives, but I'm going to go one by one. The first thing was to reach in 2007. So this is what we were hoping is to have more representative equitably at all levels of the hierarchy in our fields. And we succeeded quite well in different structure, like the steering committee, which is a scientific steering committee, the direction committee, where we succeeded in having representation, so women that are there. So we acquired 50% in the scientific and director. We have exactly the same, one more woman in the scientific advisory board. And this is important. Why? Not because maybe we said that we're going to have changes in the way we're going to recruit new women or whatsoever. It's just because, for once, I'm going to have a committee where I'm going to have other women watching me, and I'm going to have them representing, the people who are going to judge me. And for me, as a team leader, it changes my whole life. Like before, in this scientific advisory board, there was only one woman. So you had basically like 10 men, one woman presenting in front of them, and of course you don't feel, as a minority, underrepresented. I'm not going to feel the same way when I'm presenting my results, when I have not only being a minority, but also being among my peers, and among my peers, I'm also seeing women. So I guess it's also important for me to present in front of the diverse committee. Maybe the outcome is not going to be the best, I don't know, maybe they're going to judge me harsher, but for me it's important. And then we also wanted to make an opportunity, because we are recruiting new teams in the ICM. And we were discussing this later, and Tal talked about it, and many of you talked about it. Is the usual metrics we are using to define scientific excellence is actually biased for women. We know they are less invited as a last author, they have less prize, they are less invited to be a conference speaker and so on. But how do we change that? How do we change the way what we mean about scientific excellence? Next, also, we know that there is citation bias, and some of you like quote one of the paper, but this paper by Dworkins et al. In Nature Neuroscience actually is focusing on the field of neuroscience, and is saying actually that if you are a man, so first author, last author, you have more chance to be quoted. But if you are a woman, you have 23 less chance to be quoted. So your work is unseen, you are not visible, and that's the main problem. Once again, if you want to be visible, whether invited at conference, whether your work will count, it has to be taken into account in the way and how we're going to recruit these new teams. So it's something that we wanted to raise, and even if you live in the perfect world, let's say we are invited to conferences, we have as much citations as men, and everything is perfect. This study actually shows, and this is a study that was done in the Karolinska Institute where they were actually hiring assistant professors, and they did this bibliometric score, composite score, only based on publication. And then the external review score, only based on how the external reviewers will evaluate the work of the men and the women and the men present here. And what this shows is that the more you have a high bibliometric score, so the more you have high impact factors, the less you're going to be judged when you compare men versus women work. That means that the more you publish well, the less the external reviewers are going to give you a good grade. And that's a problem, because if you look at the applicants who applied to the job that were more women to begin with, at the end, because of these external review cutout, we end up with less women being awarded the job. So all of these things as a community, and because now we are hiring 3 new teams, we have to consider. And as a gender equity committee, we actually put in place several recommendations. So we don't know the results yet. We don't know how it's going to impact the new SAB, because this is the first time we are actually asking the new SAB with these 50% men and 50% women. But actually we made the recommendation on how to make the pre-selection, how to make a 50-50 application to begin with, and then the people who are going to come to do the interview, how can we make the interview unbiased? So for now, we don't have the results, but hopefully next time, like in 2 years from now, we'll be able to show you if the way we handle this process of recruiting new team, considering all the impediments that women can have throughout their career, and how much this changed the way we attracted these women as new team leaders in the ICM. Then the second objective, it seems, of course, we all think that we should be paid the same thing, and this is something that we want to eliminate. And in France, actually, now they established the Equality Pay Index, which is something that the government is asking you to do, just to see what is the difference in salary between men and women. And the ICM did calculate this, and in 2020, we're at 75%, sorry, and you have to know that 75% means that under it you need to pay a fine because you are underpaying all the women in your institute. So I want to point out that all the work we are doing with the human resources, like telling them where is the problem, like even their will to change things, because it's also something, when you show them the results, of course they want it to change. Of course, they want everybody to be paid the same. So they're also proactive, because once you show them the data, they want to switch and do a better thing. And the interesting thing is actually now in 2021, we reached the 90%. So of course, we are hoping to reach the 100, and like this, we have equality index, and everybody is paid the same for the same job and the same year experience. So we still have some work to do on the different pay gaps, but what is interesting is the pay gap is actually appearing in the very experienced people. So the more you go in higher in your career, this is where the pay gap is starting to be bigger. Next, the objective is to grow the visibility, and this is essential, and this is why we are working with the communication department. And here I'm showing you 2 results from 2020 and 2021. So 2020 is when we started to discuss these issues and say that we were not as publicized on our website, whether in French or in English, or the Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And you can see, for example, on Twitter that we were far off in 2020. But as soon as we told them, hey, there might be a problem, they corrected it. So most of the time, people are willing, if you tell them, actually, you should solve the problem because there is a problem, they're quite proactive. So is it because we are here or because they are accountable for that? because this is what we said before, accountability is also something important, because your place in the society and what you are doing to promote or not women visibility is also important. So this is some other, it's also promoting not only our work, but other women's work, and this is why we also increase, like, the people we invite. So in our seminars, we are like making a point to invite people, women and men, equally. We are also working on the visibility, on increasing visibility of women in science, and we did a specific a specific day of neuroscience au féminin, like talking about women who did a high impact on neuroscience, and to know that they are not, talked about or they are invisible is also a second part we can play in. So we have to put them in front, like Rita Levi-Montalcini got a Nobel Prize, but who hears about her work? Not many people. When you compare the people who got the Nobel Prize, who are men and women, and how much they are put in front of the headlines, there are not that many. And this is why it's also our work to put them in front again and to say this is what they did to the neuroscience field, and we have to recognize their work because they cannot be invisible anymore, and we do not accept the Matilda effect because they have to be there and they have to be known. Then the objective 5 is to set up, and this is the more controversial because exactly what you were saying, to set up training courses about diversity, about self-confidence, and believe me, we tried all these things. We tried them, and every time we go back to human resources and we say, and something is not working. Because it's exactly what you pointed out. If I say, I'm going to do a self-confidence training for the women, that means they're not self-confident. That means I point out at them that you're doing something wrong. But once again, as you said before, it's not because there's a leaky pipeline, it's not the fault of the water. It's the leaky pipeline. So I cannot tell them you have a problem. But you are living in the man's world, and we are trying to give you tools to try to get to the point where you will be able to be recognized for your work. So how do we do that? I don't have a solution. So I'll just tell you that we tried many things, we failed many times, but we are going to try again, because that's part of who we are, and we are scientists, and we try again, and this is the part of it, right? Then this objective 7 was to exactly what you were talking, Camille, so to talk about sex and biological factors. Why are they important in neuroscience? I'm going to give you an example just for this publication that came out in 2021, where they talk about the behavior of male and female mice. Why is it important, and why does it important to that point is because they showed that male mice tend to make more exploratory choices than female, because female tend to do less exploration but learn more quickly during the process. So a very different way of defining the different cues that were in the cage, and sex exerts a stronger effort, so strong influence on the decision-making process. So why is it important? And why is it important afterwards when you talk about neuropsychiatric diagnosis? Because men and women are not going to show the same way. Also, the symptoms are going to be biased. Why is there an undervaluation of autism in women? Because they don't show it the same way as men. And all these things have to be discussed. It's not that we are against having differences. That's fine. But we have to understand them. And differences is good. I'm different from, my male and female counterpart, but I'm different, but that's the point, The other things also that we are very keen on is also because we are doing clinical trials, for us it's super important that we know that most of the drugs that are now available were not tested in women. We don't know secondary effect of the majority of drugs we are using today on women. And now, still today, and this is a publication from 2021, there is underrepresentation of women in some part of medicine and on clinical trials, like oncology. I put neurology, of course, because it's us, and it's something that has to change. It's also something that has to change, because as an institute who is doing clinical trial, we cannot accept it anymore. So it's another part, and it's another way for us to put in front of our specificities. We are an institute that can change this part, and we are engaged in changing this part because it's super important to understand the biology, but also to not have this difference anymore between men and women in front of drug development. Then the objective 6 is today, disseminate scientific knowledge and raise awareness of gender stereotype among the general public with the aim of contributing to societal changes. There were more than 600 people who registered for this event. There are like 200 people non-stop on the Zoom watching you and discussing with us and being interested in that project. So of course we have, because we are the Paris Brain Institute, we cannot be not be there, for that and to discuss and to be here to explain what we could do. And during our discussion, this is where the next workshop we have to talk about. And this is something that arises. How are men impacted by gender bias? Because we don't talk about that, because we were focused, of course, on women, but we know they're impacted too, in their choices on the way they behave, in the choices in what work they would like to do, in their choices to have or not their children when they get divorced or not. So how does it impact them? And also changing the criteria. Every time it's the same, because every time, why don't we change the criteria, as was discussed just before? A leader, what does it mean? Why does it have to have these male features? Why am I not a good leader? Maybe I'm not, maybe somebody else is, but why is it that it's always, put together with this masculinity and this assertiveness and this competitivity? I mean, look at the word today. Does it work? I don't know. So with that, I would like to do the acknowledgements, because you are all here, you're all tired, and it's super important because, first of all, the lineup of speakers, the chairs of these sessions, I mean, we can all agree that it was so diverse, but all of us had this common language, and we tried to interact with each other, and it was so, overwhelming for me that I'm trying still to process all the information and to see what we're going to do. And also, I would like to thank the communication department, because they help us a lot. Thierry, who is back there helping us, Christelle, and all the French translation. It was the first attempt, so I hope it worked well. And Fiamma, of course, with these amazing drawings, very funny, that we loved, and that are going to be, it's a very nice memory for us. All the fundings we got from the Paris Brain Institute, because once again, they supported us, and they're supporting us, so it's important, and the Fondation Palagnol. I would like also to thank the organization committee, all these amazing people, and most of all is to thank our leader, which is Christiane Schreiweis, who was an amazing leader and who's not male, who has all these good features of woman, and who can do it in a nice and collaborative way, and just to know that it's been 2 years and she kept the enthusiasm and she kept us together, because we are crazy scientists, so you have to know. So sometimes our discussion go all the way, and she has to put back to the, and give the direction to tell us, okay, now you have to stop, we have to go back to the workshop. So I would like to thank her so, so much, because I know we were terrible kids most of the time, and she was out of her way, but she did amazingly, and she showed what a leader should be, and she took us to that place, and this is why I want to thank you, especially you, but all the other people too. And I want to finish with my favorite poetess, so Maya Angelou. She says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Now we all know better. Okay, so we know it comes from a very early age. So you have children, you have people you can act upon. So now it's our responsibility, because now we have all this information and we have to go with it somewhere. So now it's on you, I'm sorry to say that, it's on your shoulders now, to propagate these good wordings and to find solution, because here as I showed you, we failed many times, but we're gonna get up many times, and that's all I want to finish with. So just one thing before we go, just don't forget to give us back these badges, because we are also the green team, and we are trying to recycle. And all these, I'm saying that for the Zoom people, so all of these are gonna be recorded, and we're gonna do a YouTube streaming of all this day. And please, all the speakers and the organizers, you have a gift, so go see Christiane so she can give you the gifts that you deserve. Thank you very much for your attention and this wonderful day.